Good morning and welcome to another edition of Our Town here on 94.9 and 99.1 The River. I am Darren Swenson. Our Town, as always, brought to you by Decorah Bank and Trust. A two-guest program, but a couple of interesting and important guests on the program this morning. We will, a little later on in the program, talk to Decorah City Manager Travis Goedken, get the lowdown on what the City Council did earlier this week, and also what's going on with other matters regarding the city of Decorah. But our first guest this morning will be the Allamakee School District Superintendent Jay Mathis. We'll talk about how they put the budget together and what's going on with all the conference alignments in high school sports and high school activities going on right now. We'll bring you the Jay Mathis conversation as we speak. This is Our Town on 94.9 and 99.1 The River.
Having a conversation this morning with the superintendent of the Allamakee Community School District, Jay Mathis. Haven't had a chance to catch up with him in a couple of months, but got a few things to discuss a little bit later on. We'll talk about the budget that will go before a public hearing in the not-too-distant future. But, Jay, it's been kind of an topic of conversation in Northeast Iowa this week related to high school conference alignments and the future of where certain schools will be. And these type of conversations, quite frankly, don't happen that often, and you don't see a lot of changes that often. So you understand why they would pique interest of people. When it comes to the Northeast Iowa Conference itself, where are those discussions at?
Well, that's a good point, especially with the Northeast Iowa Conference. It's been a pretty darn stable conference. And so to answer your question, we, as you know, we met yesterday as a group, and we decided to vote Waverly Shell Rock out. So that was us as superintendents. It was a 5-1 vote, of course, with Waverly voting not to be removed. And we feel that when we lost Owine here a couple years ago, it went from 7 teams to 6, that like in the sport of basketball where you have 21 games, and if you only have 5 conference opponents and you play those teams twice like you typically do in your conference, home and away, then that's only 10 of your 21 dates, and so you're trying to scramble and find 11 non-conference opponents and working around other conferences' schedules, and it just is quite a challenge and not really sustainable. So we've reached out. This has been an ongoing thing. It didn't happen overnight. And the answer we would get from schools that we would ask is, well, we'd be interested, but not as long as Waverly's in there. They kind of 2 things working against them. One is their size, and 2 is their competitiveness. And not that any of us want to shy away from competition, but it was getting to an unfair level. And just like I said, we are not able to attract anyone into our conference with them. It remains to be seen if we can without them, but we feel we at least have a shot this way where we really didn't have a shot with them in it. So what kind of pushed this to a head is the fact that 3 of us, namely, Crestwood and New Hampton and Waukon, were given an invite from the Upper Iowa Conference to join them. And so that's an option we have on the table, and not a bad looking option, but it does leave 2 of our other conference colleagues, Decorah and Charles City, kind of sitting high and dry. And they both expressed an interest in trying to keep the Northeast Iowa Conference together. So that's pretty much in a nutshell where we're at right now, Darren.
From a procedural standpoint, what is the next steps in these conversations?
Yeah, good point. So the first step was the executive committee, which is the superintendents representing each district to vote, and that's done. Now, at our April meetings, the school boards from each of the 6 conference schools will now vote to adopt that resolution, which removes Waverly from the conference. And then whatever those school boards vote, yay or nay, is then the third step is for us to reconvene, us meaning the superintendents or executive committee of the conference, and cast our votes according to the will of our school board. And we do need a majority +1. So a majority in a 6-team conference is not 3, it's 4. +1 makes 5. So we need all 5 school boards to vote, and as the superintendents did, in favor to actually remove Waverly Shell Rock.
And you mentioned your district has received a invitation from the Upper Iowa Conference, as well as 2 other schools in the current Northeast Iowa Conference. From a decision specifically related to your district moving forward, who will ultimately make the decision where your student athletes and where your students in other activities will participate moving forward?
Our school board makes that ultimate decision. They'll get input and feedback from myself and the other administrators, namely the high school and middle school principals and ADs, as well as feedback from our coaches. So that's that they will have the ultimate decision.
And moving on to another topic, I know you've been busy putting together the school budget for next fiscal year, or the 2022-2023 school year per se. I know a lot of people like looking at the just the black and white of the property tax levy asking and how it compares to this year and next year, and I understand there's a lot more that goes into it, but we'll start out with that question. When it comes to the property tax levy asking, what is it in the proposed budget? How does that compare to this year?
It's relatively the same. It's under $10, which is our goal, and I think it's $9.98 per $1,000 of taxable valuation that a property owner would have, and so and depending on the type of property, there's a rollback. So, like for example, a homeowner, if your house is worth $200,000, typically the rollback is 50%, so you're only being taxed on that half of that amount, or $100,000. So we're happy that we're able to keep it. There's only about 30 districts in the state of Iowa that are under $10, so we feel very good about that. We're blessed to be in a district that has a strong property valuation per pupil when you divide per capita or per pupil, and also we're the only district in the state that doesn't have an instructional support levy, which is an extra 10% of general fund, and we've operated fairly lean and still given our students what we consider a very good product. And so we're down 20 students this year compared to last, and that only gives us about $12,000 of new state aid this year compared to a year ago. So that could be better, but our school board continues to monitor things closely along with the business manager and myself, and we've got a very healthy what's called an unspent balance, and so we feel like we're in a strong financial position, and we were able to give good competitive wage increases, a 3%, 3.05% to be exact, for next year, which with inflation, everything, we're happy that we're able to do that and still balance our budget.
So your deal with the Education Association on a master contract is already complete then?
Yes. Yep, it is.
And when you put together the budget this year, what was the biggest challenge in doing so?
Well, like I mentioned, the declining enrollment means there's not a lot of new money. And so part of it is really looking at what some of our categorical funds, where we have balances there, and making sure that we're, those are things like special ed or talented and gifted funds, or ones that are earmarked for specific purposes, professional development. And of course, one thing that's helped all districts across the country is, a pretty good influx of the ESSA funds from the COVID relief package. And ESSA was Every Student Succeeds Act, was the acronym that stands for. And so it's just looking at where we should budget our monies, and where we have places that we can utilize our funds in a smart way. And so that's a challenge every year, but again, we have great cooperation from our building principals, our different directors that we have, our nutrition folks, and we operate, in my opinion, very efficiently.
You mentioned the COVID relief dollars, the ESSA dollars that you have gotten from the federal government. Do you perhaps have to treat some of that money with kid gloves, knowing the fact that those are one-time sources of money as compared to continual, sustainable sources of money, such as property tax income and state aid?
Exactly. Yeah. Well said. So we're purchasing some curriculum, textbooks, and so on with some of that money. We're using it to upgrade some of our facilities, especially the air quality. So we're looking at upgrading some of our HVAC in this middle school building that was the high school, that is the only building that doesn't have air conditioning in all the rooms, and some window replacements. So yeah, we're trying to spend that. You wouldn't want to use that for ongoing expenses, just like you mentioned.
And as long as we've got you on the forum this morning, is there anything else you want to pass on to the residents of the Allamakee Community School District as long as we got you on the line?
Well, we just we experienced a bit of a miniature spring break for first time in a while. We used virtual learning days to have school on 5 snow days. They weren't all snow days. One was a funeral. One was no city water and another was electricity outage. But we had 5 days that we did not have school, but we actually did have school virtually. And so we couldn't count those hours. The state doesn't allow us to count those hours, but we had extra hours built in. And so it let us be a little more lax on our school calendar, if you will. And so the week in late March that we have parent-teacher conferences on Monday and Tuesday night, the teachers end up with a comp day on that Friday, and we added days off on Thursday and Monday around that weekend to have a 5-day weekend. And we've gotten some good feedback on that. We certainly encourage people, if they have concerns or questions or feedback for us, to reach out and let us know how we're doing and how some of these things work. Several years ago, we went to all-day in-service days to try to help our families be able to secure child care, because the early outs and late starts are tougher for families. So we're trying to listen to what our families are telling us and be responsive, but we've gotten some really good feedback on the little break here, and now we're into the home stretch and excited for the spring sports seasons and award nights and spring concerts and all those fun things, and then ultimately graduation that go along with this end of the school year.
And hopefully warmer weather here in the next few weeks, perhaps, because 40 is okay in February. It's probably not okay on the 5th of April as we chat, right?
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. We could use some nice spring weather for track meets and golf meets and all those sorts of things.
All right, Jay, we appreciate your time as always. We appreciate the candor and the good information you provided this morning. Look forward to our next conversation.
All right, thanks, Darren.
Jay Mathis, Superintendent of the Allamakee Community School District.
Time now for our monthly conversation with Decorah City Manager Travis Goedken. The City Council met last night as we have this conversation. Travis, one thing that kind of stood out from the get-go on the 26-item agenda is you talk water and sewer rates. Always a popular topic of conversation. What are the rates going to be doing on here in the not-too-distant future?
Right. So the two ordinances that were discussed, Darren, 8% on the water side, 4% on the sewer. Those rates were discussed during the budget sessions, And so we incorporated those primarily because of not just maintenance issues, but as well as installation issues. So when we lost power here in Decorah for 18 hours, we had our guys scrambling to run generators from multiple locations throughout town, make sure all the wells kept running, lift stations kept running. Because if you think being without power is bad, wait until those lift stations start failing. Nobody likes that backing up in the basement. So we've got a couple of projects that we need to make sure get covered in the near future.
And is there any specific timeline on those projects?
Yeah, so actually the water backup power as well as the Rosendahl lift station, both of those were incorporated in fiscal 23's budget. We are trying to secure additional grant funding to try and offset those costs as much as possible. But we need to get those done. You add that to the fact that the city of Decorah historically hasn't done a great job of keeping up with maintenance. And, I believe there was a 10 to 15 year time frame where I don't think rates were adjusted at all. And so we're playing a bit of catch up here, trying to get to the point that we can continue to maintain our infrastructure.
Another matter that was up for discussion last night was a memorandum of understanding with the Wenatchee County Fair Board regarding the stock car races on Saturday night. This has been a topic of discussion since racing resumed in Decorah, I believe, in 1989. Obviously, it brings people to town. It's an economic engine for the community, but at the same time, it is a distraction to some. Where is going to be the happy medium between all of the interest that are involved in an event like this?
Happy medium, Darren. That's a difficult spot to find sometimes when it comes to the city. Basically, it's trying to make the fewest possible residents angry. That's what we focus on. But at the end of the night, there was a lot of discussion. We did end up with the same MOU as has been the last couple of years, where the group that are running the races now under the new ownership, they're going to still focus on trying to have everything wrapped up by 10 o'clock, but a hard stop of 11, as has been the past. The US MTS, which is the big, you talk about an economic driver there, Darren. That race, I believe, pulls in 4,000 to 5,000 people to participate, watch. And so that race, as well as the week of the fair, those two exceptions were 11 o'clock. We know that's the hard stop.
And is there any punitive measures in these ordinances, or is it just a case of, hey, if it hits 11 o'clock, the checkered flag is flown for the night? That's
exactly it, Darren. 11 o'clock hits. An MOU is a memorandum of understanding. And so the city understands that when 11 o'clock rolls around, that checkered flag is waving.
You discussed alley improvements last night. How much work are we going to see in alleys throughout the course of the year?
Sure. There are 38 properties that are impacted as part of this alley project down in the flat, and 4 linear block stretches, I believe. And we had 4 people speak up at the public hearing, 1 voicing opposition, as well as receiving a written response from that individual, and a couple others more asking questions about the project. And so the assessment runs about $38,000 total for those adjacent 38 properties. It's just shy of 1,000 that we're estimating for each property, but the overall project costs are nearly $300,000 as part of those improvements.
Related to another topic of discussion, the location and fee structure for some electric vehicle charging stations. We're starting to see more electric vehicles, and we probably will see more as time goes by. What did the council decide on that front?
Mm-hmm. So staff had done some research, prepared some recommendations to council. It was really a discussion item because an ordinance will have to come in front of council to set this all formally. But we did agree to having those 2 chargers installed in the same location on the lower co-op portion of North Alley parking lot, and a fee structure of 31.35 cents per kilowatt hour to cover not just the electric costs, but also cover maintenance of the chargers as well as the software to run them. Plus, we want those to cycle out. So if you're just plugged in, but you're fully charged, the software allows for an hourly rate. So we'll charge on the hourly side as well.
And is this something that perhaps the city will look into more in the future? And when this gets into ordinance form, will it be a little bit more all-encompassing ordinance, knowing the fact that we're probably going to see more of these chargers down the road?
Right. Yes. So the ordinance will set fees that we'll anticipate be for future locations as well. It'll also set up, if I park my gas-powered truck in a electric charging station stall, I'm subject to a fine, and so the ordinance will spell that out as well. So yes, this will impact any future installations.
I know you held a work session prior to the meeting as well. Truck routes and intersection safety was one of the topics of discussion. Where are we going on that front?
Mm-hmm. It was pretty open-ended. There was a lot of discussion on particular intersections. Fifth Avenue and College, for example, that one received a lot of attention, a lot of discussion up in Phelps Park along the straight stretch that runs on the west side of the park there. You know, sometimes cars build up a little bit of speed on that straightaway. So no real action as a result of that, other than staff will be investigating a few areas that were identified, come up with some possible solutions.
And you heard a presentation from Impact 7G regarding mitigation banking. Explain what that's all about.
Well, I don't know that we have enough time for me to truly explain what it's all about, nor am I the expert, but I'll do my best. So staff has identified a couple of concerning areas along the Iowa River where we've got extreme bank erosion. You know, there's a stretch over by the ball fields there, you know, along the bike trail that we're one strong flood away from that bank sloughing off into the river and losing the trail. So we've got a couple of areas that we got to do some bank stabilization just to really protect our assets. Mitigation banking is a method that a lot of cities are taking a look at for funding these types of projects. Basically, we're doing work that improves the watershed, and we're earning credit for the work we're doing. Those credits can then be purchased by people that are doing work that might negatively impact the watershed. So if I'm not picking on the county or anything, but you know, they put in plenty of bridges and do plenty of culvert work. But let's say the county has to put a bridge in and it's going to negatively impact a wetland area. Part of their permit says you're going to mitigate that measure, or you can buy these credits. So they buy them from us and we get some money back.
And when it comes to matters like these, how difficult is it to manage matters like these? Because obviously these are long-term problems to solve, but at the same time, you're 1 8-inch rainfall from having to deal with these as well. So how do you balance everything on that front?
Sorry about that. Motion sensing light switches.
Saving energy, that's a good thing, right?
That's right. We're all about that here. So part of that mitigation bank setup, we do have to establish a fund that will perpetually take care of the improvements made. Obviously, we don't want to make short-term gains, put a bunch of money in bank stabilization, have it all washed away after the next high water event. So that is one of the requirements, continued maintenance and monitoring to make sure those improvements hold up.
Anything else you want to pass on to the masses this morning?
No, Darren, I'll hold off. We are seeing a decent amount of activity at the state level, but some of that activity is going to make my job a lot more harder in the near future. So I'll hold off and we'll see what comes out of this next legislative session.
You'll wait and see the final product before commenting. That's probably a good thing to do, I'd imagine.
Probably.
So, all right, Travis, always good catching up with you. Appreciate the time and the information. Look forward to our chat next month.
Looking forward to it.
Travis Goedken, Decorah City Manager. Our thanks to our guest on the program this morning, Jay Mathis, the superintendent of the Allamakee Community School District, and Travis Goedken, the city manager in Decorah. Don't forget, we put these shows on YouTube each and every week, and we share them on the Facebook pages of all of the LA Communications radio stations. If you ever miss the show, and we understand you're busy, sometimes you can't buy the radio or your favorite streaming device at 9 o'clock on a Thursday morning, we let you listen whenever you want to and watch whenever you want to, so you can see the interesting people we talk to on a week in and week out basis. Head to YouTube and basically 4-7 Our Town program. It's the best way to follow it on YouTube or find it on YouTube. You can get it that way or through our Facebook pages. to the LA communications or radio stations. Another way we provide content to you when you want it, because we realize that you are busy. Our thanks to our guests. Our thanks to our sponsor, Decorah Bank and Trust. And most importantly, we thank you for tuning in, for watching, or for logging on to our town on 94.9 and 99.1 The River.